Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. This is it. This is the big one. Manchester United travelling to Kenilworth Road to play the mighty, even, Luton Town. Talking of mighty, I've got the mighty Joe Smith with me today.
Thank you.
Can I give you an apology as well?
Yeah, always. I don't know.
On my news the other day, I called you Joe McGrath.
What?
I know. I forgot to. I'm going to say it now on camera, so apologies for that.
How has that happened?
I don't know. I'm ashamed of myself,
What?
but yeah, I did.
What do you mean?
I was sorry. About a video you'd done, and I said you could go and see like Joe McGrath the other day. I mean Joe Smith. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
Vile.
So apologies for that, but you are the mighty Joe
Thank
Smith,
you.
and we are here to talk about Manchester United playing Luton who are struggling, but are a bit of a feisty one, aren't they? At Kenilworth Road, it's not an easy ground to go to, and all those cliches. Joe.
Yeah.
The top four race is hotting up. We got that big win at Villa Park.
Yeah,
We're still obviously in sixth place. There's still a long way to go. But I hate using this expression, but I'll do it anyway.
Yes.
Is this another must-win one?
Well, you almost need to back it up, don't you? You have these big wins, and then you sort of forget that every game around them is almost as important. Obviously, if we win this game, it doesn't mean Villa or Spurs drop points, so there is obviously a difference there. But you can't then just drop points to the sort of the smaller teams. I know it's slightly unfair, but Luton, they are a smaller team than Man United, and
of course.
I'm not going to apologise for saying that. But this top four thing, we finally made it a race. We finally made it an actual, we're 6 points behind Spurs. We're 5 points behind Villa. Those things are surmountable in, 14 games or whatever we've got left to play. The big problem is the goal difference. I think we're 18 goal difference worse off than Villa and 15 worse off than Spurs, and ours is at 0. So it's essentially 5.5 points, 6.5 points that United need to overcome to overtake these teams. But we're 2 very good weekends away from being level on fourth, which it didn't feel like was possible maybe a month or so ago. So that is good. The problem is we now have to hope that we carry on this good form, because if we have our next dip before they have their next dip, it's going to be back to 10, 11 points again. So United have to now string these wins together. Like you said, this game is just as important as the last one, because we can't. What's the point in having a good run if you're just going to follow it up by being back to 12 points behind the top 4 again?
I don't want to be negative, and I hate to give sort of Manchester City any credit, but with City on the horizon, I feel like that's a game I'll be very surprised we get anything for.
Yeah.
So I feel like we need to go into that with like the maximum number of points from the games against Luton and Fulham, I think it is, before we go to the Etihad. So, for me, that's why I feel like there's extra pressure on this game. Because if you don't get a result here, then you've got the Fulham game, then you go to the Etihad. I think you're fighting a bit of a losing battle. Let's talk about something that is very, very positive. Rasmus Hojlund, the kid's been on absolute fire of late. I mean, we knew what he was capable of. We saw it in the Champions League. We saw it in the level of his performances. He wasn't getting the service, but he was putting in decent performances even though he wasn't getting goals. I mean, what have you made of the last sort of 5 games, whatever it is, where I think he's, other than Nicholas Anelka, he's the youngest goal scorer in Premier League history to get 5 goals in 5 consecutive games. Yeah,
it's brilliant, and he has been brilliant, and he's been good most of the season. Like, he's not been a terrible player who's been underperforming, and you see sometimes strikers come in and you just go, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like this, I can tell you're not very good, and the numbers prove it. Whereas this was almost the opposite, where it's like, I can tell he's good, but the numbers aren't backing it up. And I do think that people look at XG and people are obsessed with this, that, and the other, but you just look at how he plays, how he gets involved in the game. Even those first few minutes against Arsenal on his debut, the way he was getting stuck into Gabriel and the way he was being very, very difficult to handle for a lot of the opposition defenders was a positive sign. And he can score in Europe. He's done that. He scored at Bayer Leverkusen, maybe not. Bayern Munich Stadium, which isn't maybe the achievement it once was if you're following German football.
Yeah, the fact you're getting them mixed up with Bayer Leverkusen speaks volumes, doesn't it?
And Bayer Leverkusen are the better one.
Yeah, that's it.
But he's obviously a very good player, and then now we're seeing that in big games as well. The goal against Villa is the sort of goal I want to see from him more. It's all good smacking one in from 20 yards like he did the other week, but tapping it in from the 6-yard line. If you can get 15 of them a season, you've got yourself a very good year. Like most strikers, all good strikers even, score the majority of their goals with their first touch inside the penalty spot.
Yeah.
That's where top strikers get most of their goals. I saw a stat, it was, I can't remember who the striker was, but there's a striker in Italy in the 90s, and he got like 41 goals in the season. They won the league, and he got every single one of those goals was scored with a single touch.
Really?
Yeah, and that's what top strikers do. Van Nistelrooy, he scored the great goal against Fulham, but most of his goals are a header or a first-time shot or a volley 5 yards out or a rebound. Like, I like that he's scoring these sorts of goals, and as long as he's in those positions, he's going to keep scoring.
I wonder who that was. You need to find out. It feels like it could be Inzaghi or someone like that who used to love being a bit of a poacher, even though Fergie said he was born offside. Let's talk about predicted 11s, because obviously United seems to have a sort of settled team-ish, where we kind of know our front six, I would say. The midfield and the attack seems to be quite settled. Defensively, we've had issues. We've had, obviously, Luke Shaw went off at half-time against, was it Aston Villa? He went off at half-time against, and obviously Victor Lindelof came in at left-back and had a bit of a torrid time of it, even though he did contribute to us getting the win in the end. But talk us through your predicted 11, because, like I say, you feel like United are getting a little bit more settled in terms of who you expect to start. Yeah,
and also, I know who did that start. And we'll save it for the end of the show.
Okay.
It can be a little teaser for people watching. Here's my predicted 11. It's basically the team that we've seen.
Yeah.
But a couple of changes for injuries. So obviously Martinez still out, of course, so Maguire keeps his place. He started against Villa, and I thought he was actually very good. Maybe the best he's been all season in terms of actual out-and-out quality. And then I brought in Lindelof at left-back. I know Luke Shaw, they said a precaution, but that doesn't always mean you're back for the next game. Sometimes that means he's now only out for 10 days, whereas if we'd have let him keep playing, it would have been 6 weeks. Yeah. So I'm going to err on the side of caution. We were filming this before the press conference, so we don't know for certain whether Luke Shaw will be fit, and we may not even know after the press conference, because we've heard the late fitness test. We'll find out in the morning line a few times this season. So I'm going with Victor Lindelof at left back, but the rest of it, and I absolutely love that I can say this, sort of picks itself. I thought Onana was very good against Villa. Varane, Dalot seems to be he seems rejuvenated after that little break that we saw in January.
Yeah.
Those sloppy mistakes that had just crept into his game after what, in fairness to him, had been about 15 weeks in a row of starting every single game, whether it was at right back or left back, because of the amount of injuries we had. And he looked like he was knackered, switching off in counter-attack, switching off at the back post. He seems to have almost got a mental sharpness back to him in the last couple of weeks, which is good to see.
100%.
That midfield three, I love it. I do think at times the gaps in the press, sometimes they're still a little bit exposed in there because of the distance between the defence and the attack. But I think as a balance, it's very, very good. And we're finally starting to see Hojlund score goals, Garnacho looking dangerous and lively and likely to get goals and assists. And the same can be said for Marcus Rashford. I think you have to go with 9 of that 11. Pretty much picks itself, doesn't it?
It does. I completely agree with everything you've said, to be honest with you. I think it's good to see Diogo Dalot in the form that he's in and getting his flowers as well, because he's not been perfect. Let's not rewrite history. I mean, after the Bournemouth game, I was fuming with him when obviously he could have squared it to Rasmus Hojlund. He hits the side netting and Bournemouth go down the other end and score like from the resulting goal kick. But we've always liked Dalot, haven't we, on this channel? We've always spoke about him quite highly, and he's always put in some pretty underrated performances for United. But I think lately, I mean, you look at that ball, like you mentioned earlier, the performance against Aston Villa, that ball for Scott McTominay's goal was just fantastic. And it was a great little bit of play that, to see Mainu using his quick feet, the low with an absolute inch-perfect cross, and Scott McTominay doing what he does best this season, coming off the bench and getting his head on it, a bullet header.
It had a touch of the sort of Gary Neville's to it, that cross, I thought. Arriving at first-time cross, just put it into a very dangerous area, and when you've got players like McTominay and Hojlund, I think was in there as well.
Yeah, I think they were queuing up basically for it, which is great to see.
Get goals.
Yeah, 100%. So it is refreshing. We're not 100% though, are we? We're not like full strength, because we're only missing a couple of players, but one of those players is Lisandro Martinez, who, I've said it, we've both said it a million times, is arguably Manchester United's most important player under Erik Ten Hag. My team, you've zigged, I've zagged. I've gone Shaw's fit. Like, we take the chance that he's ready. If he isn't, I understand your thinking with Victor Lindelof, because he didn't have a great game against Villa, but Steve pointed this out in his match review, and I agree with him, that Dalot down that right-hand side, who crossed it in for the winner, if you take him off that right-hand side, you might not have got that winner, because there's no guarantee that Victor Lindelof would have been able to do that. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was either Lindelof again, or maybe even Amrabat. I picked him last time because he can play at left-back, but we'll wait and see what happens. But that seems to be the only one that's a slight doubt. Luton,
Yes.
I mean, I like what they've done there. They've sort of got the players that helps them get into the Premier League. They've brought in some other players as well. Obviously, we know a couple of them, Ted Mengi, Tahith Chong. Seen Ross Barkley's gone there and done really well. They've had a decent bit of form as well of late. You can see the sort of results there. I know the Sheffield United game wasn't great, but they beat Brighton emphatically.
Yeah.
A draw
Something
with
we've never done.
No, it's usually the other way around, isn't it? When we play Brighton, we've had a spanking off them before, and obviously they've done well in the FA Cup. What have you made? That's not even a word.
What have you
made? Bagel, make your thump up, Wood in Thole. What have you made of the job Rob Edwards has done?
They've done really well. They've done just about what I thought they'd do, which is I think
did you predict them to do?
I predicted them to stay up, and I don't know if they will. Obviously, if Everton get their act together, they probably won't stay up. But I didn't think they would be the one to get 6 points.
Did you get shouted at for that in your prediction?
I feel like I may have been shouted at. I also got shouted at for predicting that Wolves would do quite well this season. I remember that one, and they're top half, I think, or certainly close to it. But let's not worry about that right now. Luton, they're a good team. They're very difficult to beat at Kenilworth Road. Beating Brighton 4-0, I don't care what the result is, who Brighton had just played, whether they're knackered, whether they're coming off form or not, is fucking difficult. And it's a very impressive result, that. And Brighton have literally battered us enough times in the last few seasons for me to be able to say that. So they're a good side, and United are going to have to play very well to beat them.
I agree. With all that being said, but before I ask you actually, get your phone out, film yourself 30 seconds in landscape, send us your score predictions to paddockmatchday@gmail.com, and we'll use that as part of our pre-match build-up on the watch-along. Joseph, give me your score prediction, please.
Yeah, I think United are going to win. I think we're going to roll on with this good form. I'm thinking a 1-0 win. I'm going to go with Rashford to get the goal, and I think it'll be a first touch goal, much like the 38-goal season for Real Madrid in the 1989-90 season for Hugo Sanchez. Every single goal he scored that season, I think he broke the record for most goals in a single league campaign. Every single one was a first touch finish.
Well, unlike you, I actually rate Rasmus Hojlund, so I think it'll continue his goal scoring form. I'm going to go 2-0 with Hojlund to get them both. But I might be sort of being a bit ambitious with a clean sheet for Manchester United. Joe, where can people find you?
Joe Smith 93 and on the Sloppy Joe's podcast as well.
Go and check it out. Very funny. I absolutely love Joe McGrath on that podcast. Sure. And Ethan as well. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well. That's been Joe Smith. I'm Jay Motti. This has been the Luton Town Preview. Thanks for watching.